Our next panel is called Job Insights. We're discussing with employers, employees, interns, and volunteers. This is intended to give you a little bit of insight to what you can expect as you pursue each of those options in Blue Economy. You know, one of the things that I find pretty remarkable about Blue Economy, and you probably observed it earlier today, is the breadth of it, right? There's a lot of things that are included in what is Blue Economy. In fact, we don't even have all of the options represented here. I talked to some of you earlier who told me about your interesting fields, and I can absolutely make a connection even between things like medical, molecular genetics, to Blue Economy. Knowing that you're interested in those things gives us the helpful insights that we need in order to make these conferences better, and each year you want to keep coming back. So I encourage you, again, please fill out those surveys and give us your honest feedback about the kinds of things you want to see here when you come back here next year. We're going to work really, really hard to make sure that you have the quality experience you can expect. So I mentioned that there's a breadth of experience that kind of incorporates is part and parcel to the Blue Economy. We have a partner and a board member for the Plymouth Foundation on which I work, who works for Northeastern Savings Bank. And 4 years ago, that bank had never made a loan for aquaculture. Because they attended our conferences, because they become educated with what aquaculture entails and its profitability, they've now made their 5th loan in 4 years to support aquaculture startups. What I'm really proud of also is that the foundation, through the conference, has fostered a great working relationship with Mr. Jeremy Devaney and the Atlantic Resiliency Innovation Institute. His full-time job is as a banker, yes. And one of the things that I think many of you aren't quite thinking about, but maybe some of your parents are, and you will certainly be thinking about it someday, is how does Blue Economy and things like climate change affect you as a homeowner? Mostly residential mortgages, right, that you work with?
Commercial mortgages.
Commercial mortgages, not residential. Rescind what I said about residential. It's irrelevant at this very moment. But you don't want your business to be underwater. So Jeremy holds several leadership positions in the South Shore nonprofit community. He serves as board chair and economic development chair of the Marshfield Chamber of Commerce. He has tripled membership in that time frame. Congratulations. He's also the co-founder and board chair of the Atlantic Resiliency Innovation Institute, which incubates and supports next-generation coastal hazard mitigation tech solutions and workforce development, which is why you're all here today. He's also an active member of one of my favorite nonprofits and charities in town, the Plymouth Area Coalition for the Homeless. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Jeremy Devaney to the stage.
Hey guys. Awesome. Good to see you guys today. Thanks so much for your attention. We're really excited about this panel. It's a great opportunity for you students to learn more about different pathways to access the blue economy. Like, what is the blue economy? It's a really big idea. If you spent any time here yesterday, you might have heard the town planners and some of our big thought leaders talking about the blue economy. And there really isn't a huge definition around it, a very detailed definition, right? You can come at it and you can be in finance. Who here wants to go into finance? Anybody like numbers? Anybody want to work with money when they grow up? Who here wants to go into robotics? Anybody? Lots of robotics hands. How about who here wants to go into town administration? Anybody want to go into biology? Lots of biology hands, right? So we've got a range of different experiences up here in different career types, because really every career you want to go into can fall within the blue economy, whether it's real estate and commercial real estate, whether it's aquaculture, whether it's robotics, whether it's undersea biology and astrobiology, or whether it's helping people hire people with certain technology skill sets, or whether it's helping a town administer everything that goes on in the water or by the water, right? There's lots of different ways to come at this problem. So we're really blessed today. I have a fantastic panel for you. I'm excited to share and help them unpack some of these ideas for you guys. But we're going to get going, and I'm going to have Sarah start us off down on the end and introduce herself real quickly, and then we'll pass it on down to Kate.
Sure. Thanks for being here today, everyone. My name is Sarah McCormick. I work for the town of Plymouth in the Department of Energy and Environment, and I am a natural resources and sustainability specialist. And if you want a job with a very long title one day, I recommend you look into the town of Plymouth.
My name is Kate Armstrong. I'm a youth career counselor currently for Mass Higher South Shore. So I work to help youth like you guys figure out what you want to do, as well as get part-time jobs. But my background is actually in marine science. I studied marine science in college. I grew up on the Cape, like some of you here may have, and ended up working for a couple of different science institutions during that time. Found my way into workforce development, and so now I help people like you figure out what they want to do in STEM.
Go right ahead, Molly.
My name is Molly St. Gelay. I am a senior at Plymouth North High School, and ever since I was a sophomore, I've been volunteering for the whale and dolphin conservation, and I've been fortunate enough to have a million amazing opportunities, such as speaking on this panel today with them, and I have been able to assist in various different animal strandings, gone to sit in and help out with some animal necropsies too, but also their whole education department and their research programs too.
Hi, I'm Brett Fanoff. I run a series of businesses that are employing a couple hundred engineers from robotics, mechanical, electrical, software, and we design, develop, operate autonomous vehicles undersea and on the ocean surface, and a little bit of space tech as well.
Terrific. Thank you for those introductions. I'm going to start with Molly because obviously all of you are in high school and have questions about where you're going to go next in life. Some of you are sophomores and some of you are seniors and have already made that decision. But Molly's waiting for some college answers right now. Maybe give the folks a little to talk about what you want to study next and how you came to that decision.
Yeah, so I know not even, well, myself included and a lot of other people in this room are trying to decide what are you going to do for the next 4 years of your life? What are you going to go to college for? What are you going to do after college? Oh yeah, sorry. And for me, ever since I was little, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. I knew I wanted to go and rescue animals, even be a dolphin trainer. That was my big thing when I was really little. But when I was in high school, I started thinking logistically, like, what am I really going to do for the rest of my life? And I knew I wanted to make an impact on my community and the world in general. If I can do that, that'll be amazing. So when I was trying to figure out where I want to do volunteer and community service hours in high school, I found the whale and dolphin conservation. I'd heard about them through just public events downtown, Plymouth, and all that stuff. And I was really fortunate enough that they were super excited to have me on their team. And over the last 3 years, I have gotten, like I said before, so many amazing opportunities through them. And through these opportunities, I realized that I don't necessarily want to constantly be out in the field doing work. I mean, it's great, like doing a whale necropsy, missing school for that, insane. But I don't really know if every single day I want to be sticking my arm inside of a dead whale. It was great. I'm glad I got that over with now instead of paying 4 years worth of college and then being in debt and realizing that that is a lot of work and it's really emotional too. I mean, you're dealing with dead animals, that's sad. So through that, I started talking to people in the whale and dolphin conservation, trying to figure out, I'm still really passionate about this. What are other job opportunities I could have other than being in the field and doing research? And that's where I started learning about the whole further implication that biology and fieldwork can have. So now I've shifted my career focus from working in the field and working hands-on to more research aspects of it and more lab work. Versus now I applied to Florida Institute of Technology, still waiting for my application to come back. Yeah, and literally any day now. But my major that I eventually want to work towards is astrobiology. And when most people hear this, they think, oh my God, aliens, like insane, you want to find that stuff? No. I want to kind of use a lot of the technology that is out there, growing plants on Mars. It's a big running joke in my family that I'm going to be like the guy in Martian and grow potatoes to survive. But using that technology to try to solve problems on Earth. And there's a lot of really great research opportunities out there right now, which is kind of where I want to take. So my biggest takeaway from this is just you never know until you try and what paths it'll take.
That's such awesome advice, Molly. At RE, we're really, really big believers, especially in our academy, that experience through an internship can help you define where you want to go next. And sometimes it's about highlighting what you don't like as much as the things that you like, not making that 4-year investment into a college based on loving whales, only to find out that you don't. Have some friends that have gone out and studied nursing, only to find out that they don't like the sight of blood. They don't like vomit. That's a career ender if you're in nursing, right? So you want to make those decisions as early as you can. How many people here have internships right now? Raise your hand if you've done an internship, had an internship, plan to have an internship. Awesome. You guys get those internships going. It's a great way to figure out what's next. Brett here runs a couple of offices that have hundreds of engineers. Maybe you can talk about some of the work your engineers do,
Sure.
the different aspects of science and business that they touch on, and how folks can wind up at one of your companies.
Happy to. Yeah, so I think maybe we should define the blue economy a little bit too. So I kind of think of it as the entire economy of the planet, right? So from the deepest part of the ocean to the outer reaches of space, the universal constant we need for that is liquid water, right? So this is a blue planet. We live on the land, but the entire planet is governed wholly by the oceans, right? This is a blue planet, and water is the key building element to life. So everywhere is involved with the blue economy in all aspects of science. We tend to, at my companies, work in the defense sector a little bit more, but we also sponsor lots of interns and apprentices working on robotics mostly. But we touch on all the engineering disciplines. So we employ physicists, chemists, unfortunately no biologists yet, but maybe in the future, mathematicians, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers, every engineering discipline you can think of, and then the support staff to help them do their jobs. And we're building very sophisticated autonomous robotic systems. Generally, they don't get much smaller than, say, the size of a city bus. We are on the larger size of things, and they operate independently in the oceans, both on the surface and subsurface. And we're doing a little bit of work with NASA to bring some smaller systems using our software into some potential future exoplanetary work. But the biggest problem we have as a company, maybe that's the way to talk to you guys, is we can't get enough qualified employees. We've started taking on more and more interns and apprentices. In the United Kingdom in particular, where we have a major office, we ended up having to start our own math school because we couldn't get people that were coming out of secondary education that could do basic math. It's a real problem. And math is when you think about a foreign language, you should think about mathematics because it's the language of the future. And if you're not studying math, it's unlikely you'll have a great career in engineering or the hard sciences. Biology, not so much, but still, analytical processes around artificial intelligence are largely dependent on your understanding of math. So very important that you have a good grounding in mathematics if you want to go into the sciences. Not having math won't exclude you. I'm not good at math, but I've been luckier than I have been good at math. Our biggest problem, we could double or triple the size of the company, we could increase our revenue, but we cannot hire qualified people. For every one engineer that graduates, there's 1,000 people with degrees in English. And I love reading, I love writing, I hope all those people find jobs. But the economy of the future is largely going to be driven by people who understand and develop and control technology. And we're seeing that now. Most of us consume technology, but we don't understand the fundamentals that underpin it. And we're relying on a smaller and smaller group of people to create, maintain, and operate that technology for us.
Really powerful idea.
Sorry, I know I'm probably not
really
answering your question.
Really powerful idea, right? So it sounds like there's a tremendous opportunity for you folks if you're thinking about careers in engineering, right? There's a huge gap between the talent available to Brett and the amount of people he actually needs. And one of the nuggets that I hear in there, and we'll move on to it, is the idea that internship and apprenticeship can help you really define that pathway, right? The apprenticeship model is really important for you guys because it's a mentor-protege. It's an expert that's going to take you through and teach you all those amazing things. You see this table of folks at the front here, and we were talking earlier about thinking about how to align yourself with those experts in your field as you go on to the next step, as you go on to college. Right now, you guys might drag your feet going to school every day. Oh, I gotta go to school. But I hear Molly sit down with Brett, and all of a sudden, it's like, you guys read Twitter or X all the time, and Elon Musk said this or that. Molly's Elon Musk is sitting right next to her, right? Find the mentor to lead you through the next cycle. Some of the things that Brett's talking about are ideas that Lucky Palmer over at Andrew talks about a lot, the automation systems and the power of technology in the next generation. But maybe Sarah can talk. She's had a really unique experience coming out of biology and oceanography and really moving to a place where she's having direct impact on communities today. And it's a very different pathway for you guys.
Yeah, it was a little surprising to hear myself grouped into the town administrators and not the biologists. I think that's probably the first time, I've experienced that. So I've been in my role for just over a year, but I got here through a very, I'd say, untraditional way. My background is in fisheries biology. I did that. I'd go off on commercial fishing boats 200 miles offshore for a couple weeks at a time doing science out there. I then transitioned into the marine mammal sea turtle rescue rehabs, training response necrop, SeaWorld. So I worked in the nonprofit space for about 10 years, and I'm really proud of, if you walk around the resource tables today, a lot of the companies out there are offering paid internships and paid opportunities, and that's not something that really existed 5, 10, 15 years ago today. And so I do think I was asked on this panel because they thought I was a little bit younger, but I will admit I am a millennial, I'm sorry. But as I was coming up through the educational system and trying to get these experiences, paid opportunities really just didn't exist, and you had to find ways to balance volunteer roles and unpaid internships with jobs, sometimes multiple jobs. And so I'm just really proud to see of how far this space has come in even the 15 years since I was in your shoes. But these internships, whether they're paid or not, offer really invaluable insight into whatever company you're looking at. So if you have the ability, the resources to get involved, even as a volunteer, it's certainly worthwhile. It helped me shape my career, and like many of the folks I chatted with downstairs today during the interviews, I have a lot of interests. I really struggled when I was in your shoes picking a path. I knew I wanted to play softball in college, and I did not really know what I was going to study. But I wanted to leverage the athletics to get the best education I could. Ended up at Cornell, and from there I was exposed to a number of academic opportunities and internships. So each one gave me a little bit more information and pointed me to the next step in my career. So, if you have the opportunity to chat with the resource tables today, talk to them about what you're interested in. Maybe that opportunity doesn't exist yet. I certainly created opportunities for myself along the way, and I encourage you to do that as well. Talk to them about your interests. Maybe what you're interested in doesn't exist yet. Yesterday, the first day of this conference, we talked about these hidden pockets of innovation. Things that maybe the panelists, the people who are funding your work, your projects, weren't really ever expecting, but someone else in the room was thinking about it, and we realized how important it is. So talk to people, share your ideas. You have really great ideas. And if you see a pathway for yourself at any of these companies, talk to them about it and try to create that opportunity for yourself. And maybe an internship will pop up, a shadowing opportunity, an externship, something like that.
Really, really powerful. So willingness to pivot as your interests change, as career opportunities change, as technology changes, right? A lot of us are here because we're focused on technology aspects of the blue economy. But if you think back to all the things that were possible just 5 years ago versus today, some of what Brett and I work on day to day, some of what Kate and I share work on day to day, or Sarah rather and I work on day to day, wasn't possible 5 years ago because we didn't have high-powered compute. We didn't have autonomous systems. We had unmanned systems. We didn't have cellular technologies to be able to stream data or satellite technologies to be able to offload data. So there's all sorts of evolutions that have taken place over the last 3, 5, 7 years that changed the landscape for you folks. And as you go into college or go into your next choice, there's going to be 3, 4, 5 years before you come out of school possibly where the environment's going to continue to change. And what does that begin to look like? An awesome resource for you guys to think about as you're planning and you're trying to find opportunities that are open, Kate can talk you through. Mass Hires is a phenomenal institution that is run by the state, but helps you guys. Why don't you walk us through, Kate, how you interact with students and how you might be able to help them?
Awesome, thank you. So Mass Hire South Shore, probably most of you are within our region. We're located up in Quincy, but we work all the way down to Plymouth. And we, like I said earlier, help youth just like you, as well as adults and veterans, anyone who comes in. We help them figure out what they want to do for work and figure out how to get there, whether that's by doing training, by helping you with your resumes, by helping you figure out, how you can actually make those opportunities, like Sarah was saying, for yourself. We can help you plan, what company do I want to go to ask for job shadow or to ask to volunteer. Every step along the way, we are with you in that. There are mass hires all around the state of Massachusetts, so it's not just us. So even if you don't live in Plymouth or you live a little bit further away, but you're still here today, you have a local mass hire, and you can find that pretty easily through a Google search. But I highly recommend, I am someone who in college, I feel like I didn't make the most of the kind of career center that we have there. So one of my biggest recommendations to you guys is to make use of the career resources that you have for you. Many high schools now have career and college counselors. Make use of Mass Hire as well. The great thing about Mass Hire is that we can connect you with a lot of free training opportunities. I was talking with some of you earlier today about some opportunities that we have that actually high schoolers who are seniors in good standing have the opportunity to participate in and get some work experience in the trades before you've even graduated high school. And you don't need to be in a high school trades program to do that. So it really is all about, making the most of the resources that you have, remembering and knowing that you have those resources, learning about the resources, and then using them to help you figure out who you are, what you want to do, and kind of what your next steps are.
Such incredible advice, Kate. As you guys embrace that advice, a second piece of advice, you look around the room at the teachers that brought you here today, those are your first line of advocates. Those are the people you need to be raising your hands to and saying, I want to do this with my life. How can you help? How can you send me on the next pathway? Because they're going to put you in touch with people like Kate. They're going to put you in touch with the deans at your school or your guidance counselors that are going to be able to link you with people like the Marshfield Coastal Academy or Mass Hires. And sounds like Brett had an idea along that pathway. I'll let him jump in real quickly.
Sorry.
Go for it. No.
I'll give you near 60-year-old man advice about how to get an internship. Most people running businesses are close to my age. I get 500 to 600 emails a day. I don't read them. I don't do business on WhatsApp or Snapchat or Instagram at all, ever. But every single person that's ever come to our building on a rainy day, took a bus, knocked on the door, asked if there was an opportunity there, and these are high school kids, sat down with one of our engineers and got an internship. And it's really simple. They bothered to show up like this today. They'll probably show up every day when we let them. That matters to the people you're going to be dealing with, consistent behavior. Are they going to show up? Can I rely on them being here? Can those people push through the first couple of weeks of boredom at the job because they don't know anything yet? So we're going to fill that knowledge bucket up, but they have to be present. And the more present you are, You get pulled into different things because you're a pair of hands. Where is that guy? Here, hold this. And suddenly you're involved in an extremely complex technical pursuit with one of the experts in the field that you want to work with. You just have to show up. Also, I read every letter I get. People my age read letters. I've had every single person that sent me a letter asking for an internship, asking for apprenticeships, got it, because they bothered to write the letter and I read it. I get thousands upon thousands of emails a week. You guys don't even want to do emails. And also, I'm not criticizing you. I understand it seems passé for you guys, and your communication methods are very different than business. Sometimes we even take cold calls from students. I generally don't take cold calls from students' parents asking for their son. But if somebody musters up the courage to actually call, about 50-50, my PA will put it through to me if I'm not tied up in a meeting. And every one of those has resulted in an internship. So I know it sounds pedantic, but showing up matters. Taking the time to do something different matters. It doesn't mean don't fill out the applications online. It doesn't mean don't go to mass hire, talk to your guidance counselors. But if there's a company nearby that you're interested in, you'll be the only person this year that knocked on the door and asked if you could have an apprenticeship, and pretty likely you'll get it.
You guys just got the golden ticket. Hey, growing up, my father used to say 90% of winning in life is just showing up. Half the time your competition doesn't show up. When you show up, it produces a different result. You want different results because the large majority of people aren't getting these jobs. So do it differently. Think about it differently. Show your intent, right? You want something, go and get it. Awesome. Molly, can you talk to us a little bit about the emotions around making some of this decision? Are you nervous about it? Are you thinking through it? Do you feel confident now based on your experience of the past?
Yeah, so like I said before, I know plenty of people in this room are nervous about making decisions about their future. It's a big decision, especially if you're deciding to go to a college. Right now, college is really expensive, and deciding what major, what pathway you want to take is a big financial decision, because what if when you graduate, you don't want to keep doing that? You spent all this money, all this time, people have expectations on you that that's what you're going to do. But through this experience, volunteering had little stakes. But even after college, if you decide you don't want to do something, you can still find passions and find what you want to do through that college experience. Like me and my volunteering journey, deciding that I actually don't want to go into the marine biology route, but go more into space sciences. Obviously low stakes, I wasn't spending any money, wasn't making any money, but I was still spending my time and dedicating that time. And as high school students, you guys know, time is a very valuable resource. We're all juggling a million things at once. So same thing goes for college. So even though I know I'm going to college for this major, even if I end up not liking it, I know that I can still go and choose a different pathway, and I'm gonna make connections in that industry that I can go back to and be like, hey, I actually wanna do something different. Do you have anybody you could possibly connect me with to help me get started on that path? So it's definitely taken a big weight off my shoulders.
Being open to that opportunity,
Yeah.
asking for help, yeah, a lot of that. That's so fantastic. I think one of the ideas I want to explore with these folks real quickly while you guys are here is an issue that we run up against in the blue economy all the time. How many of you want to go into homeland security, defense technologies, unmanned undersea, drones, AI? Raise your hands. There's a lot of you. How many of you would never work for the Department of Defense in your lives? A bunch of hands. Let's have a quick conversation about dual-use technologies and who funds science missions. Sarah, you've worked on a lot of science missions. Why don't you start us off about how to come to balance with the idea that your federal government is sponsoring a lot of the science missions in dual-use technology?
Thanks for that one. Let me think about this. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the political landscape yesterday and how it impacts our work here locally. And in the town of Plymouth, we do apply for a number of grants, both at the federal level and the state level. And, it's tough. We ride this roller coaster every 4 years of, what that administration's priorities are. And then there are things that, as scientists, we believe as factual. And in my role, climate change is one of those things that I believe in. And it's my job to look at the town of Plymouth and its future and, based on these things I know to be real, how do we prepare the town of Plymouth for these eventualities? And we work on projects, that evaluate flooding in the downtown area. We look at things like dune nourishment projects to be able to keep that barrier beach in place and protect the town. So this funding is really important to us, and it's really important to the people of Plymouth. It is tough with this yo-yo effect. It really is. Luckily, we live in a state that really has put an emphasis on climate resiliency. So we have been able to leverage state funds into these important projects. But it certainly is something that you have to sit with as a scientist. And for every good application of a technology, there's one that maybe isn't as great. And, I think I work through that every single day. I think we all do. I think you have to look for the good in everything that we're doing. You can't control those things that you can't control. So focus on the positive applications of the science and of the technology, and you can't control what they're being used for. So, just focus on what you're doing and the importance of that. And you have to let the powers that be kind of control the rest, unfortunately.
Great advice. I'm going to go to Brett real quick because he works at the tip of the spear, and you were telling me a little bit level 4 research. Some of this is close to DARPA. If you don't know who DARPA is, the Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, they run all the spooky, scary stuff for the DOD.
It's not scary.
It's not scary.
It's not,
so tell us how it's not scary, Brett. Go walk us through that dual-use conundrum for science.
Well, DARPA they're what they call a blue sky organization. So they're very interested in things that might not be possible, and they provide tremendous amount of funding for fundamental research, as well as sort of applied research. But they like to push out on the edge of things that they're not really sure it's going to work. And so that's a very exciting place to be as an engineer. But I have probably a different perspective than a lot of people here. I grew up in public housing. I went to UMass Amherst. I could only do that because I joined the Army, got the GI Bill, came out, went in the National Guard, got free tuition, drove a bus, public transit, full-time, 40 hours a week while I was in school at the university, because they run the regional bus service. And so I had a different perspective on working with defense. I was working on a doctorate in oceanography, not particularly interested in defense, but the reality is they provide a massive amount of funding to almost every university in every physical science, every fundamental science. And much of the infrastructure at your universities is provided through defense funding. Philosophically, maybe that's a terrible thing. We could debate that, but it is a fact. And I'm okay with that largely because I like living in a free society that necessarily has to be defended. And I guarantee you wouldn't like the alternative. And there is no free expression, and there is no free scientific inquiry without freedom. So I know it probably sounds stupid to say it out loud, but that is the absolute truth. So as far as working with defense, it's not all about weapons. I mean, they're interested in AI. They're the largest funding agent for AI. They work closely with venture capital firms as well. The government of the United States even runs its own venture capital firms that invest in startups. So believe it or not, the CIA has a venture capital firm called In-Q-Tel, and they actually act just like a VC firm on, Fifth Avenue in New York City. And they invest because they're interested not just in dual use or military technology, but raising the level of technology available to all of us in general to make us a more resilient society. And unlike some of the climate things that you're struggling with now with funding, defense technology tends to have a much flatter curve in terms of funding being available, meaning it's more consistent. You can think about what that means philosophically too, I suppose, but these are the realities you'll be faced with in almost every graduate student program in, say, oceanography has a component of military funding. It just does, because they're interested in where are the submarines, what's happening in the ocean, how does that affect how we'll be able to defend ourselves in the future.
It's an interesting idea embedded in there, guys. Sometimes pure science missions are impacted by federal priorities and change from administration to administration. And a lot of our friends that work in pure science missions have seen changes over the last 18 months in their careers and in their career pathways. Whereas, if I'm hearing Brett right, and I think back to some of my own experiences, some of those defense budgets are a little bit smoother. And if you want to be on a long-term program and you're not so inclined to change, maybe a defense program might be the right place for you to do level 1, level 2, level 4 research and really change the environment for folks.
Can I say one more thing
Sure,
about it?
please.
Sorry, guys. I lost my train of. This is what happens when you approach 60. I had an idea, gone.
AI is going to change that.
Yeah.
We'll go to Kate real quickly, though, because I think you can talk a little bit about job opportunities on both sides. We've got a great climate. Before we go to Kate, breaking news.
Sorry, you should just think about the level of technology we have today when you think about the defense industry. So why do we have that technology today? Well, you can trace almost all of that to the Apollo program, right? So starting in the early 1960s through the mid-1970s, the amount of money that was poured into that literal moonshot, right, is the progenitor of printed circuit boards, microwave ovens, thousands of things that you take for granted every day that existed before most of you were born are the direct result of a massive government and defense investment in space tech to put a man on the moon. Now, that technology was also used for ballistic missiles, but there are direct societal benefits that I think it's important we don't ignore, right? And we just take them for granted now. That's what I wanted to say.
Very interesting point. Now, Kate has an interesting perspective in that she can see all the open jobs across the state and what all the different industries are demanding, whether it's Raytheon and iRobot up on the North Shore in Waltham, or whether it's Green CIQ over in Cordage, or whether you want to go down and work for Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute designing miniature sensors for undersea subs. Talk us through the landscape of opportunities, where you think the landscape is moving to. Where should these guys be thinking for the next 3-5 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, like Sarah was saying a little bit earlier, the landscape is always changing. The funding is always changing. And that's something that just, that's the way that it works. And you, as a person and also in your career, kind of have to find that balance and also be adaptable as things change. Because, if you're going into science and doing research, this is speaking from experience. I worked on a science research project on a salt marsh that had funding for 20 years. It was one of the first of its kind, very cool project. And then the funding ran out. And my bosses were already thinking ahead about, what's our next experiment going to be? What's our next project going to be? Where's that funding going to come from? So a lot of it is really about kind of thinking about where you're at now and where you can go, the different pathways you can take from the point that you're at. Right now, again, we have a lot of funding just in general in the sciences from the Department of Defense. So a lot of people are, realizing that they might need to transition into another area of science for the meantime. Not that they can't come back, but kind of using these almost opportunities and changes as a growing experience. And that's very much like a career pathway. You're not going to, or at least most people are not going to, go into the exact career that they wanted when they were 5. They're going to have different twists and turns, finding out that something else is interesting, finding out that you maybe don't like having your, hands inside a whale all day. So just kind of continuing to ride almost those waves and view them as opportunities is kind of the best thing that we found that folks can do, is just be adaptable. No matter what you've done previously, it always has an application to something that you're going to do in the future. Those are your transferable skills, and you'll carry those with you all your life.
Super. Guys, we're out of time. There's some awesome nuggets that we've had in here, and I want you guys to give our panel a giant round of applause and say thank you. As you leave here today, remember, 90% of winning in life is showing up. Write somebody a letter. Be open to change. Be open to new experiences. Ask for help. We're here to help you guys. Congratulations. Hope you had a fun day.
We are going to field questions for this panel from the audience. So if you can make it up here, please come and stand in line at this microphone. We will also pass a microphone about halfway back in the room. I know some of the schools are leaving right now, so thank you, Carver, for being here.
Let's queue up for some questions, guys. It's a bow tie Friday morning. Bill.
Thank you.
No.
So I was wondering about the DARPA question.
Lean into the microphone a little bit and speak
I
up.
apologize. So I had a question about the DARPA. I did some research how they worked with the internet, the earliest stages of it. I was wondering, would they be interested in funding a project I am working on? It is an autonomous quadruped, like the one you saw outside, and I'm trying to make it use socket joints rather than conglomerated linear axes, so that I could have...
Okay. Well, DARPA is probably not where you would go for that. They do really weird stuff. Like, they look for just literal blue sky stuff that is hard to even describe to you. So, for example, like, we're working on a project where they're trying to make a very large vessel completely autonomous that can stay to sea and repair itself for a year. And, you know, that sounds simple, but there's lots in it and it's definitely not working. We might get it to work. There's other things, if you were looking for funding like that, there's lots of grants. There's a thing called a Broad Agency Announcement Program that you can look up on, there's a thing called sam.gov, and you can search there for opportunities. There are things called S&T, Science and Technology Broad Agency Announcements. And you can search by keywords like robotics or actuators, and electric actuators is a huge area of interest and concern both within the Navy, but more particularly for quadrupeds, the Army. So reducing part count, enhancing repairability, reducing part count, and increasing mean time to failure. Super important, as well as reducing weight while maintaining torque. And manufacturing cost, if you can drive that down. But there are hundreds of these open source things where individuals can apply and actually get what's called like a phase 1 or a phase 2, usually called a Small Business Innovative Research Grant. But there's literally thousands of those. So go to sam.gov and just do a search for robotics and actuators, and there's probably 100 papers asking for, you know, a request for information or, you know, request for proposal to design some type of a new actuator. And then every service has different portals for people to make direct unsolicited proposals as well. I generally deal with US SOCOM, so I know that one, but I don't know the other ones for the Army, for the Navy. So you could, but just take a look. And they all have what they call science and technology officers and public outreach officers. Particularly, they like to work with universities, but you can do it as an individual and probably even as a high school student. But DARPA, awesome probably not where you would go.
Awesome question. Sam.gov is a great resource for you guys if you ever want to think about government contracting and understand what the government's actually asking from companies or people around the country, around the globe. They put this out on sam.gov, and it's called an RFI, or Request for Information. And they start shaping bids where people say, I can do that, here's my price. So you want to go out and research some of that.
And it's not just for defense, it's like every department of the government. So like maybe the Department of Agriculture is looking for a lower cost rotary actuator for a farm robot program that they're funding. But if you just go in and keyword search, you'll find them. And then you can refine it by department, and then you can look. And, you know, I think small business, if you start go start a business, costs you $50, you can have a incorporation. Seriously. And then, you know, chuck it over the fence at them. You know, I think they start at $150,000. Like, I think that's where it starts. Mm-hmm. And then it goes up by phases. So, something to think about.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Do we have another question? Go right ahead.
This question is really based off of a current fear I have going into a industry. I always planned to go into programming, and now I fear that the industry might be dying due to AI, or I might have to shift focus due to AI. What do you suggest to do if not go into programming? Or about the issue of AI changing industries rapidly and making degrees I could get into now useless by the time I graduate?
That's a
Great.
fantastic question.
Yeah.
I can talk a little bit about that. And so, you know, you're right. There's a lot changing right now, as we were talking about earlier. And, you know, one of those things is the changing landscape of programming, programmers, you know, folks who work kind of behind the scenes on the computers to essentially make everything, you know, in our world. And I think one of the biggest pieces is that, you know, while AI is starting to, you know, change a lot of things about the job market, is to kind of go with that. Figure out, you know, how you can learn, you know, how AI and programming can work together, what you can learn about AI to make yourself a better programmer, and talk to folks who are kind of on the front lines in the fields right now. Again, you have lots of resources, your teachers, you know, reaching out to different folks in your community, because they're the ones who are, you know, kind of going through this change now, and you want to prepare yourself, you know, for the future. And I will say that, you know, even if you did go into a programming, say that you got, you know, a degree in programming, and, you know, maybe you were having trouble finding a programming job, remembering that even if you know, went into that specific program, the skills that you learned in that program are going to be applicable elsewhere as well. And I know it's a really big fear right now for a lot of you guys, and even for a lot of us older folks. But, you know, hold on to the fact that the skills that you have and that you have gained are applicable across so many different industries, and that you can often find even positions that might not be exactly what you were, you know, thinking that they would be in different industries as well, because programming, there's a lot of that happening across different industries.
Before we wanted to go to Brett real quick, because I know he works right at the front edge of AI.
Don't be afraid. We need more and more programmers. And I think it's really important to remember that AI is software that has to be programmed by a human. And this idea that some super intelligence is going to emerge and write all the code and make us superfluous is nonsense. It's been 100 years away since we started talking about it 100 years ago. It's literally been a fear for that long. I think manual labor is more a threat, right? So if you said to me, I want to be a dock worker, I would say maybe you're right to be afraid, because you're going to be replaced and are being replaced by robotics. But the person programming the robots, replacing the dock workers, is not losing their job. So I think your fear might be a little unfounded. And I will tell you that there are massive shortcomings with AI. And the most significant thing you should bear in mind as a human, right, is that AI is not creative and it is not intuitive, right? So it can process massive amounts of data. It can debug code that you write. It can work in a way to assist you. I always tell people, you know, instead of thinking about it as artificial, you can think about it as an assistance, right? These are things created by people to help people do things people aren't good at. And these things remain very, very bad at the things that people are good at. You could not program something to do a task that you take for granted every day just walking down the street. It's very challenging. You know, the compute resources are crazy. The models that have to be developed that you do in an instant. And neuroscience and AI are merging in a way, and we're seeing with AI that we're running into a huge bottleneck, that just more and more compute, more and more data, and more models is not actually making it better. And some of the models collapse. We're at a really interesting inflection point because we don't want to keep pumping power into these big data farms because we're damaging the environment. It's not producing better results incrementally, but not transformative. So there's a really great opportunity right now for people interested in software and programming and AI in general to kind of think about, well, how does it become more context-driven? And nobody knows the answer to those questions, but people will have to solve them, not AI. AI will not solve those problems. So there are really big fundamental problems that need human programmers. And then just from a fundamental level of what do I do for a job every day, you can't just say to a Claude or one of the AI code writing programs that probably worry you, oh, make me an autonomous navigation system for a boat. You can't do that, right? First of all, it doesn't know what a boat is, so you have to teach it what a boat is. You have to teach it what a boat is. You have to teach it all sorts of things. It's a process you do with, you know, humans. It's a tool. Learning how to use it is important, and becoming a subject matter expert on the problems you're trying to solve, employing AI is a great way to ensure your future career as a programmer. But you're at a really exciting time to become a programmer, but learn math. Cannot stress that enough. Learn math and take physics courses, because we're seeing a trend run into like full physics engines and simulations that are better representations of the world. You know, God, we've been trying to solve that problem for like fluid dynamics for a couple hundred years, and we're not really much closer. So there's so much to do in programming, so much of the creativity, and looking at some result from an AI system and saying, no, that can't be right, because you have a different sensibility completely. AI systems are not smart. They do not understand things, right? We just don't have words to explain how they are compared to our intelligence, right? Humans, most important thing. AI will not advance without humans. Programming's great. Learn math, you'll be a better programmer. You have nothing to worry about. You're a really exciting time.
So if I'm hearing the panel right, be prepared to pivot, but also AI is an opportunity. It's a tool that still needs humans in the loop to guide it, to train it, to give it context, right?
To make it
you
not
can go to
be-
GitHub and grab code all you want, but unless you tell it what kind of code you want, you still are going to have trouble building
You
something.
need humans to make it not suck.
And Sarah's got one more
There's a
idea.
lot of bad code.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. I think when we're talking about careers in STEM, it's really easy to focus on the hard skills that are needed to get the job, the science, the math, the coding, all those things. But there are these intangibles that are needed too. And science is hard, tech is hard. You have to be able to adapt to whatever comes your way. There's no way to predict what the world's going to look like 10 years from now. And we weren't talking about AI 10, 15 years ago in most circles, maybe in Brett's circles. You know, we couldn't see this field, and that was not that long ago. So having that drive, that determination to adapt and continue and to pivot is just as important if you're going to take a career in STEM as that coding and that math. And then you need the skills to stay in that field. So those softer skills that scientists were not always so great with. You know, you need to work collaboratively with people to really innovate. And, you know, we face these insurmountable issues. How am I going to stop climate change? How am I going to send this to outer space? And it's really easy to stay focused. But being able to work as a team as well as, you know, individually super important to having success in your field. So don't forget that. Don't get lost in the technology. Be a team player. Stay hungry, adapt, and you'll be fine in this field.
One of my favorite words, be resilient, right? Be resilient, stay persistent. Guys, we're out of time. I know there's a lot of interest in talking to these folks. Grab them after the panel, but let's give another big applause for these guys. Awesome, thanks so much. Thank you to our panel again. You guys have been fantastic.